Good evening. This is September 16th. This is a meeting of the Water Resources Committee. I'm the chair, Les Fox. I'm now recording the meeting and I'm going to do a roll call to establish quorum and then we'll call ourselves to order and get started. So, Stephen Schmidt.
Present.
Janet Connolly.
Present.
Brian Clemens.
Present.
Brian Lynch.
Present.
Cindy Markowitz.
Present.
And Les Fox is present. Thank you. We have a quorum. So I will call the meeting to order at 7:35 on September 16th. I probably should have introduced the new members first before reviewing the minutes, but why don't we give Sam a minute to show up and get right into the minutes. So the first item on the agenda is the review and approval of the minutes of August 19th. And if you've had a chance, those were distributed by Brian earlier in the day. If you are ready to discuss them, let's have a motion to approve the minutes.
I approve.
So moved.
So moved.
I think Brian spoke first.
Well, I think Janet did actually. I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, open to discussion. I have one thing to say right away, and there's a mistake in there, and I think it's my own fault. I think I misspoke, and Brian probably correctly captured what I said. And item number 2 in the welcome and introduction of new members, he says, I correctly welcome Cindy Markowitz and Sam Anderson as new members, and also noted that Joseph Stolpen was replacing Kashava Srivastava as the liaison for the Finance Committee, and that's not right. Joe is the liaison to the Affordable Housing Trust. John Grevin is the liaison to this committee. I don't believe he was at the last meeting of this group, but anyway, Brian, that's my fault. I'm pretty sure I said that, but it's incorrect, and you captured it.
Well, I have to report what was said at the meeting.
Yeah, but you need to make a note that that needs to be corrected.
I can put incorrect in parentheses.
Well, whatever you think is right. I want the minutes to make sense when people read them.
And then the minutes for tonight will report that we're correcting an error or that we identified an error.
Yeah, I don't want to make it too hard for people to figure out that was wrong, before they go too far down the path, but you're in charge of the minutes, so why don't you do what you think makes sense?
Okay.
Item number 8, Sustainability Committee, the last sentence, and he, meaning Fox, would ask the town planners what kind of feedback they're looking for. That probably should be singular.
Well, I think you said that you would speak to both Ian and Alec.
Well, right. So one's the town planner, one's the associate town planner. So I don't know how you want to interpret that. We could say both.
I used the lowercase town planners, so technically it's not their position.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, I could be more specific. I could say town planner, an associate town planner.
Yeah, I don't think that's worth sweating that details myself. So, and under Board of Health, next to last sentence, Fox asked about the Aquifer Protection District. So I think there was can't read my own writing, asked about. I think it said asks there. Do you see that?
Yeah, there's a typo there.
Okay, so that's it from me.
Did you happen to note the time we started, Les?
On that meeting?
Yeah.
You mean that one we're just talking about? Oh, I see you have that blank. Let me see. No, I did not write it down. One could always go back and look at the recording, but I did not write it down. Sorry about that. I'll try to do that in the future.
Well, it's my job to write that down.
Well, I'd like to be helpful if we can.
Okay, that can be checked.
Yeah. All right, that's it for me on the minutes. Nobody else? Okay, if there are no further emendations or corrections, let's have a motion to do. Well, are you considering these corrected minutes with a note, or how are you treating this, Brian?
Well, they'll be amended.
Just even for the typo. So let me have a motion to approve the amended minutes.
So moved.
Okay,
Who
motion
spoke
made.
first? Who spoke first there?
Steve did. I'll second again.
Okay.
They're so eager. Okay, motion made and seconded to approve the amended minutes. Do a roll call vote. Stephen Schmidt.
Aye.
Janet Connolly.
Aye.
Brian Clements.
Aye.
Brian Lynch.
Aye.
One.
Now,
Cindy Markowitz.
Aye.
now, I want,
Aye. And Les.
speechability,
Says
yeah.
aye.
I want the whole thing right now,
Want to hear it? You
Yep,
hear it.
and I want to speak.
You are hearing it.
What?
You are hearing it.
And what, can they hear me speak?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm listening to you now.
Can I speak right directly?
Well, you're not a member of the meeting, so.
That doesn't matter.
Hmm.
It's a public meeting. Is that right?
Yeah,
All right, open me up to speak.
you're speaking now and they can hear you.
Okay, Mr. Fox,
Yes.
this
Let's
is
go back to-
Suzanne Schmidt.
I'm sorry. Why don't you introduce yourself to the folks on the call?
I just did. Suzanne Schmidt, 962 Depot Road,
Okay, thank you.
Foxborough.
Okay.
One moment, I need volume here, just a minute.
Can't hear
Turn it up.
it?
Up.
There you go. There you go.
Thank you. I will apologize to the other members of your committee for interrupting. But
You
I have
dropped
something
out
to
there.
say to you, Mr. Fox. Just a moment.
Susan, you dropped out.
I feel that since town meeting 2021, when the lab biosafety requirements were voted in town meeting to make an official change to the bylaw, and I stood and presented the case that I had worked on for 3 years prior to that, during the pandemic. And I presented all the evidence, which the planning board, when I did present it in 2019 to them, they totally ignored. What was it that the planning board finally realized 3 years later, in April, 3 months before the town meeting? What? Mark Barbadoro takes all the arguments, thankfully, based on evidence that I had presented on the town website. Yes, there is a problem with being facilities that may accidentally pollute wells or septic systems with pathogens or hazardous materials used in facilities. We don't want this in Boxborough. But since that town meeting, and I did present why, they left open level 2 labs here, open in Boxborough, on that tract, the 200 acres, on which Barbadero's property abuts. He had a personal interest to work very, very hard to prevent. any facility that could possibly pollute the water here in Boxborough. That level 2 that is open, fine, doctor's offices, whatever you want. But that level 2 has been proved in the literature. If there's an accident that a researcher wishes to bring a level 3 pathogen into a facility with level 2 requirements for research, that has happened. And I don't see why level 2 was never shut. But why am I here speaking to you, Mr. Fox? I have been harassed personally since that town meeting in 2021. I was lambasted, and some biotech sanctimonious individual poo-poos everything I did. This was an environmental argument. It was not animal rights. My well was at stake. I just spent 4 months in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. What do they have there? Total PFAS contamination of their wells. They allowed an industry, ChemFab, to locate in that town. The water is polluted. I lived there 36 years ago. The tap water was pure, it was clean. And what additional hazard has someone in the local government allowed? The introduction of a biomedical research facility, hepatitis B. That it's a known fact that pathogens, hormones, drugs, and chemicals do not fully break down in a public water system. No treatment will eliminate them. Listen to me.
Susan,
So what? In
Susan.
Doylestown, every single individual has to buy bottled water. The town government sold out. To
Susan.
industry? No, you listen to me. I have been harassed.
No, you're not on the
Yes,
agenda,
I
and this is
am.
completely out of order. If you
No.
want to come back on a scheduled meeting and talk about this topic, you're free to do so.
I am
I'll put you on
interrupting you, Mr. Fox, because I feel that you have influence in the harassment that I have been suffering.
I have no idea about this case you're talking about. Okay, that's one thing.
What
I don't
did
wanna-
you visually intimidated me at the town meeting in
I don't know who
2021.
you're I don't know who you're talking about, Susan.
You're a liar. And you were going to sell us.
Les, can you
Take
block
it away.
this?
I'm gonna have to shut you off, Susan.
I apologize.
Completely unexpected, and I think rather unique, and it's never happened before. Extensive comments at the beginning of a meeting that weren't scheduled.
No, but this is, many boards have had to deal with hostile takeovers like this, and she shouldn't be allowed in the meeting.
No,
This is the first time we've had to deal with a hostile takeover.
yeah. Let's see. How do I get Steve back on the air here? Steve, can you hear me? Can you unmute yourself? No, I think you're unmuted. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, well, that was very unexpected and not on the agenda. We can't really have that happen without it being on the agenda. Can't have a discussion. So I told your wife that she's welcome to ask to be put on the agenda for a future meeting and present whatever she's presenting. I couldn't follow very much of it, actually.
Okay. Sorry about that.
So where were we? I think we're at the point of discussing, welcoming our new members. So Cindy, we welcomed you. I think you weren't here when we welcomed you, but welcome. Cindy is a member representing the planning board.
Yeah, I was here at your last meeting. I think I got your welcome, but thanks for welcoming me again. I feel very welcome.
You're very welcome. We're a very welcoming group. Looks like Sam was not able to make it, but I know he's quite interested in what we're doing. He spoke to me about a case he knew in town where someone discovered PFAS in their well on their own testing, and they're very concerned about making sure that people are informed about what steps to take should they find this sort of incident on their own property. So we hope that we'll see him in a future meeting.
Do we know where that was?
No, it was not. I did not say, and I did not ask. So maybe that's something that we want to follow up on. Some time ago, we were working on a map of wells that have been tested on the DEP program that you know about, and had a map of where wells were found to have PFAS, but we never really completed or put a wrap on that work because of the sensitivity of identifying properties that had discovered reportable levels of PFAS. So something to talk about in the future about how to deal with the whole water quality thing in terms of encouraging testing and how to present the results and protect privacy. So the next item on the agenda is to talk about the comments that we as a group have on the quote final draft of the report that Weston and Sampson has delivered to us. That's the one that's dated August 12th that you all have. And I've received comments from a few folks, and I thought I would go over them and see what we would want to do about combining them or consolidating them into one feedback to Weston and Sampson. I guess they could range from minor typo kinds of things or minor clarifying statements, or something that gets into the area where it might not be possible to add new material because of the limitations of the fact that we are basically out of funds to do new work at this point. So if we identify those kinds of things, we can put them on the list for a possible second phase of this work. So I have collected everybody's comments, and Brian, I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'd like to lead off with yours, or fairly very complete, and I'm gonna show them on the screen if you have no objection. And I think people
Do
should
you have the most recent version of that list?
Yes, I'm pretty sure it's the most. If it's not, you can tell me instantly, and I'll get that up there just as soon as I remember how to do this. I always have trouble with this. Okay, share. Don't know why I don't see that. Hang on. Now my little toolbar's gone away. Why do I always have trouble with this? I believe this is your comments, Brian. Does that look right?
That's the most recent version.
So why don't I let you speak to this, Brian? I'm just showing it up on the screen.
Okay. Unfortunately, some yellow highlights didn't come
Yes,
through.
I did. That was a surprise to me. This came from printing your Word document as a PDF, and it wiped out the yellow highlighting. I couldn't take the time to restore it all accurately, so let's see if we can do the best we can.
Well, anyway, the crossouts are there. So,
Yeah.
so my first question is, should the title of this report say Phase 1? And I'm wondering this because like some of the planning board comments pointed out things that we hadn't done. And we need to remember that this is only the first phase of what we expect to be some more work. So should we put Phase 1 in the title of this?
I think it makes sense somehow to do that. I would look over the RFP that was used to solicit this response from Weston and Sampson. It did talk about this being a phase 1 of a larger body of work that would be unfolding in time. So it would be fine to add that. I don't know whether it should be a subtitle or something like that. Maybe we could, turn to Emily to ask how she would like to put that into the report so that it makes sense. Maybe a subtitle of a phase 1 report or something like that.
Okay.
And you've got these specific, yes, go ahead.
Well, I suppose if we change it on the cover page, we might have to change it in many places throughout the report. I don't know. But we could just, where it says on the cover page, Comprehensive Water Resources Report, just say dash Phase 1 would be one
Something
more
like that.
view.
Something that's easy.
Yeah. The next comment is, this shows up in a couple of places. I wanted to say that it looks like we have enough water as long as we continue to get water the way we have been doing it, which is to have most properties served by their own well.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like Emily had said, however, we need to look at water quality. And then I said, furthermore, if Boxborough had to develop a municipal water system, we don't know whether we could find a well to do that.
Not only a well, but enough of a area to provide a proper zone 1.
Well, that would be meeting DEP requirements.
Right. And that one's unavoidable, I think. So,
I mean, I think it's a little too pat to say we have enough water. I think that needs to be qualified.
do you want to suggest wording or let her take this advice and come back with a response?
Well, I've got the wording right. The wording is right there.
Okay. So you would like to substitute that in for what she has now?
Yep.
Okay.
And so that would be.
Can we discuss that a little bit, Brian?
Sure.
So I'm thinking about this in the context of this phase 1 report, right? So we're saying it is not clear whether a well of sufficient capacity could be developed. That's true, it's not clear. But isn't it also true that it wasn't addressed as part of this phase 1 study?
I think that's correct.
Just to the extent that they reviewed previous reports.
Correct. There was a whole bunch of work done prior on locating wells when the water resource was under the Board of Health.
Right, like the CDM report where they had the map with the different locations or whatever. So yeah. I guess I'm asking, is it a conclusion, this furthermore statement, is that a conclusion that we're asking to be added? Or is that a statement about the scope of the phase 1 study that was done? Like, would we recommend in subsequent phases that we would evaluate municipal water system, or are we relying on the previous CDM reports to make this statement?
I would say the statement we have to make is that we have apparently sufficient water of quantity, but not necessarily quality.
I totally disagree. I'm just trying to zero in on this. It is not clear thing.
I think it's
because if we didn't ask them to evaluate it,
but it's also not clear that we need to pursue that. If the town decided that we needed to pursue that, we could follow up with further work. So I don't think, to answer your question, I don't think this is being phased as a being worded as a recommendation.
mm-hmm.
It's being worded as a conclusion.
Okay. Because the reason I ask is that if you were to make a statement, it depends on how things are sequenced. I guess if you're not a close reader, I think we are all close readers, but maybe not everyone will be a close reader of this document. And someone might say, well, if we don't know whether we're going to develop municipal water, if we don't know whether there's wells of sufficient capacity, quantity, why would you evaluate quality?
I'm not following that.
I guess I don't know how. I was just concerned that we were saying something that isn't a conclusion of this report because we didn't ask them to evaluate whether there was wells of sufficient capacity for a municipal water system. Someone might read that and say, "Oh, well, then I'd like you to." Someone might say, "Oh, I'd like you to do that," or we'd say, "Well, right, we're not going to do that," or "We will consider that," or And I'm okay with leaving the door open to future analyses. That's what additional phases are for.
I'm pretty sure identifying a potential location for wells for municipal supply were not in scope.
Right.
I'd have to bring up the RFP, but if I do that, I hope I don't blow this screen away. Maybe someone remembers for sure. I don't think it was in scope.
Oh no, we definitely didn't. That was definitely not. So
okay.
Again, so if it's not in the scope of this RFP, it's true. There's a lot of things that are unclear. All the things that were not in the scope of work, we could say is unclear.
Right.
So if it's not in the scope of work,
it's not in the RFP,
there may not be a conclusion related to it. It's yeah.
I mean, just because it wasn't something that Weston and Sampson was supposed to address doesn't mean that we can't put in information that we have available to us. The report can say this, even if Weston and Sampson didn't reach the conclusion on their part. We reached the conclusion. It's our conclusion that we don't know if we're ever going to find a well of sufficient capacity for a municipal supply.
If we made those kinds of comments,
can't be in the report.
Yeah, I don't know whether we could put those comments within the body of the existing report, which is work product of Weston and Sampson on our behalf, or if we called them out appropriately, could we do that, or should just be left as a opportunity for a standalone report with our comments on the work that was done?
This is our report. It's going to say what we want it to say.
Well, right.
We could run it by Emily and see what she thinks about it.
I think that might make sense,
Yeah. I mean, I can stand down on this. Not a big deal. I just want to make sure that if this is furthermore is actually based on previous work done by prior consultants and as reported in blank, 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 it is not clear. That might be a safer place for Weston and Sampson to be, as well as this committee in terms of future work. But again, that's just how it struck me. I'm not going to I'm not going to go to the end of the earth on this one. It's not that big a deal, but I just wanted to share maybe perception about how it could be read. That's all.
What I'm trying to avoid here is creating the impression that everything is fine. And we'll talk a little bit more about that further down.
I see. Well, that puts a different spin on it. Yeah, yep. Okay.
I mean, yeah, we have enough water if we continue to
if we use private wells. Right. So
well, we have
right. So
water.
Maybe.
Sorry, we have enough water for quantity. The problem,
right.
Okay.
As things occur and development occurs, we may have to worry that the quality will be reduced. And I think that's a concern that we're seeing from some of the testing that we've done on wells that are in subdivisions. In other words, the first wells are pretty clean. The latter wells have a much higher incidence of, unwanted contaminants.
Well, that's just also the issue of how do you pull out X quantity of water from the ground for some number of people? It makes a difference whether you pull it out of a few big wells versus distributing it over a larger number of small wells because of the issues you know about zone clearances and so forth, which is a much more complicated topic that we don't want, I think, get too much involved with here.
Yeah.
Maybe one way to bridge the two, the second and the last sentence is available for all currently relying on private well systems. Then people get it. Oh, it's only true if we're all continue to use private wells. Furthermore, if we did municipal, right? Like I think adding a few words after available for all would make that tighter link that you're trying to get at, which is it only makes sense for quantity if everyone's using a private well, and that sets aside the quality question. And then it links more to the furthermore statement.
Can you be more specific about what you would change?
Let's see. We're just riffing here, Brian. All right. Available for all. Well, we say all, we mean, all properties relying on private water systems.
Actually, what we could say is all known uses.
Trying to get that private system thing in there.
Well, you could insert something like appear to be sufficient, blah, 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 under current practices where approximately half the residents are served on private wells.
And that's a true statement.
That is a true statement.
That's really people just living in their own houses on over an acre.
Yes. All of the
does it work out to about half?
It does.
Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah,
yeah, the report.
It'd be clearer if you explained it as people have their own houses and their own acreage versus the people live in condominiums. It's kind of obscures that when you say half the residents.
Well,
that's right, because there are public water systems, quote, public water systems that are relying on groundwater. So it's that clean groundwater for use as drinking water is available for all. Yeah. I mean, that's really what we're talking about.
The way I said it means residents could be either a resident consuming water from a public water system or a resident consuming water from their own private well.
Mm-hmm.
The math works out that way. And that makes it clearer that we're talking about the current status and the current practice of putting in private wells of sufficient quantity to service about half the residents, and the remainder are on public water systems.
Mm-hmm.
So if you tried to put in more large public water systems with all the rules that you have to follow from DEP about zones and so forth, it might not work out.
We're fast approaching less that there's not sufficient room for the well.
Well, that's the whole issue, right? There's no room to jam it all in that case.
So specific changes? Anyone?
I mean, Brian was offering the idea if we said available for known uses. I like that idea because there's a lot of uses of the groundwater. I think if we said to ensure that we say clean drinking water, I mean, to ensure that clean groundwater used, for drinking water. If we added that specificity, people understand what we're talking about is groundwater.
Yep.
That's all we got.
Because I know it. I know we all know that, but there's still some folks who are like, "Oh, what do you mean by groundwater?" I said, well, the water in the ground. That's what we're pulling out of the ground and drinking.
But aren't we interested in current and future uses, not just known uses?
Well, if we're making statements about the quality of the water and the quantity, we only know the known uses. We don't know what the future might bring.
Right, but we want to ensure that if someone drills a well for a new house, that they also have good water.
True. But again, I think you're going to find that in some cases that may be somewhat problematical in some areas.
So far, there's no evidence of us running up against a limit of continuing to put in private wells at the rate and the density that we have been doing.
Correct. But if we get into areas where we're required to do high density housing, and we have to supply water for that, it's going to be a whole different ballgame.
All right, maybe we just say it's available for all.
All right, and that leads us to the question of, well, in that case, you're talking about a development where someone's going to put in, try to put in a large public water system and get permitted for all that. In which case, whose problem is it at that point to solve? Is it ours to solve or is it theirs to solve? That is, theirs being the developer who has to then prove a well and get it permitted.
Correct. That's the way it's written right now.
Right.
Yep, I see what you're saying. So it's not so much to ensure, the testing wouldn't be to ensure that there's good water. It would be to know what the water quality is.
Yeah, just one of the thoughts, just so we can speak a little bit about it, is that we're trying as the Board of Health to map all the well locations known in town and put them on a GIS basis. And what we're going to do is then, I think in the future, maybe come back and we're going to propose what we call sentinel wells that we would install. It would be in the same general areas and using about the same aquifers, and monitor the water quality of the sentinel wells to see what's happening over time. And again, this is just a way to provide some protections against contaminations or future degradation. But that's not part of this report. That's separate.
Right. Well, we have a lot more to go through. Have we finished on this paragraph here?
Well, it sounds like we're going to leave it as is.
Well, instead of the word ensure, you want to maybe say evaluate. Analysis isn't going to ensure anything. It's only going to tell you what's there.
Yeah, to evaluate whether clean water is available for all.
Right.
That brings up the scary possibility that it's not.
Well, I think there's some instances where we've already had releases from the gas station and some other things that have proven that it's not necessarily true. You have totally clean water.
I'm okay with that. I mean, hell, everything west of 495 is a water quality issue.
Correct.
That's what drove the Littleton water main extension.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's going to be is needed to evaluate whether clean water is available for all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Um,
Now we're on to B, right?
Now we're on to B. The wording of placed under protection under conservation. Conservation isn't really our remit. So we might make recommendations that land be placed under protection for water supply purposes.
Right. You can put other kinds of restrictions that could protect the water supply.
Yep.
And that might take the form of, if the town acquires conservation land, the Water Resources Committee might want to recommend that water supply purposes be allowed under whatever conservation restriction. But that doesn't.
Right. Yes, and I don't know whether we've actually done that anywhere. But it could be done, I think.
Instances we did do that.
Where did we do that?
I think it was something with Sudbury Valley trustees, and there was another one out in beyond 495. Don't remember all the details, but it has a vague recollection in my memory that we did that in a couple of instances.
Okay.
Well, the Cisco conservation restrictions, some of them allowed water supply uses, like for the golf course.
True enough.
Right.
Yeah.
And in fact, they allowed for a golf course.
Yeah, but now they're not. Right. Okay.
Item C, I suggested adding 2 more recommendations. One is that we continue to discuss regional water supply options with neighboring towns. This is really, our ongoing discussions with Littleton and Acton, and that would include an interconnection with MWRA. And the MWRA thing is, that's something that they're looking into anyway. So when we talk to Acton and Littleton, we end up talking about MWRA quite a bit. And
yes. Sorry, go ahead.
And then the 7th recommendation would be just simply to follow up with further studies recommended in this report.
Yeah.
And I wanted that language in there so that the select board can see that, this isn't the end. And so we're clearly making a recommendation to keep going based on what this report recommends.
Yeah, I think we also should include something somewhere high up in this thing that says we're also trying to provide fire protection for the town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's actually missing in all this, isn't it?
Yep. And I think it's a very important piece. It says, the private wells are cute, but they don't necessarily give you fire protection.
Right.
We could go back to item A. In the first sentence, based on this analysis, groundwater quantity appears to be sufficient for current and future drinking water needs and fire protection.
Well, we didn't really evaluate fire protection. The past practice is that it kind of works out, right? We pull water from ponds and haul it in tankers.
Yeah, but we don't have a consistent supply of water, except for what's going to be provided by the storage tanks in Littleton to the water pipes that are being installed.
Right.
And that's a major factor because, depending on drug conditions, that may be the only fire protection water available.
Yeah, and something just to think about, jumping ahead here, is that things that might go into a follow-on or phase 2 or study is to address the whole fire fighting capability and what should be done in the future. I have not talked to the chief. I don't know whether there's a definitive plan about where the fire department should install additional dry wells, or not dry wells, but
Dry
fire
hydrant.
ponds,
Yeah.
or drill wells, or what have you. Whether there's a plan about all that, I just don't know. But it's something that this committee might want to weigh in on in the future about trying to understand that aspect of the water supply.
I think it's crucial because most of the buildings we have in town are wood structures.
Right.
Mhm.
So that's on my own list for things to think about for a phase 2 or follow-on work. And there's going to be a lot of things that we want to consider for that. So just one of many.
How about if we make a new number 6 that says evaluate firefighting needs?
Yeah.
And my 6 becomes 7 and my 7 becomes 8.
Yep.
That's
Works
fine
for
with me.
Yep.
Although, just as a background, and we'll talk about this when we talk about our recent conversations with Littleton and Acton about MWRA and regional water solutions, we keep saying, and they seem to be agreeable, that we, the town of Boxborough, would not likely want to have a direct MWRA connection. We would rather, because I think it's lower cost in terms of investment in infrastructure and human resources and all kinds of things, we'd rather buy water from them. Have just use the Littleton water line extension as a model for how we would do that. Another one from Acton or another one from Littleton or some combination might be the way to go, so that we don't get in the business of managing public water systems.
I think you got to be careful there, Les. At some point, as the needs grow around us, there'll be less willingness to share water.
Well, that'll be a self-limiting process then, right? Yeah, so. Yeah. But if they are going to be tapping into MWRA water and passing it on to us, then they have a lot of supply in that case.
Right.
And this is things that are evolving.
If Acton could exercise their water rights in Boxborough, they might be willing.
There's all that too. Yeah, we should put something in the report to indicate that, there needs to be a comment about firefighting capability.
Well, that's it. I just added a recommendation number 6.
Yeah.
And I made it 6 because I didn't want to tack it on to the very end. so that in other words, our final number 8 recommendation is that we follow up with further studies.
Yeah.
As recommended. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The next comment concerns section 5.5 in Appendix B, where they calculated recharge rates. And they are still reporting recharge rates for the entire groundwater basin, which is about 38 square miles, which is about 4 times the size of Boxborough. And I thought we had talked to them about the need to have recharge rates for Boxborough by itself. And somehow that hasn't gotten addressed. And I don't know what to do about that.
I think the issue there is that something has to be pushed into further studies, because that makes it necessary to study the stream flows. In other words, how much water is actually leaving and how much water gets reported back in the ground for each of the subbasins that have been identified. And because those subbasins, have origins outside the town borders, there has to be some kind of a study done to look at what the inside border analysis would look like. And I think that's a study that, obviously they don't have access to that even at the state level.
Yeah, and those kinds of studies
couldn't they just take what they did and, they have a map of each geologic feature and its recharge rate. And couldn't GIS just identify those within Boxborough and they could apply the rates that they're using?
Well, I think that's the very simplistic situation. But the reality is that if other people are using water either extracting it through wells or other things that are above the basin that we see, then the flow rates coming into Boxborough are very different than what will be just done by nature. And I think that's the situation that has to be analyzed. In other words, here's Boxborough's portion, but what's arriving in town from the upper basins may be very different than what would be calculated from a strictly natural stream flow. But again, these are studies that have to be done. We don't have sufficient information to make those determinations.
Yeah,
Okay, well, here's what they're reporting. For the basin as a whole, there is 6,700 million gallons per year. That's their minimum estimate. Their maximum estimate is 16,000.
Mm-hmm.
They say that Boxborough represents 27% of the basin. So if I multiply 27% by those numbers, I get 1,800 is the minimum estimate and 4,300 is the maximum estimate.
Yeah, but again, my concern is that is the basin flow that they're reporting just considered natural basin flow without any extractions? In other words, if there are towns above or below or whatever, not below, above, that are extracting water from certain wells, then the flows coming in as recharge are very different than what the flows that they're reporting. And again, that's something that I don't have the answer to, but I think that's something that should be studied.
They do have withdrawals in their tables. Here's my concern. By showing a number around 4 times what Boxborough actually sees, we're implying that there's a huge margin of safety that really isn't there. And
Well,
maybe what we need to do is just kick it back to them and say, I understand your concerns, Brian, and they'll probably say the same thing. So maybe we just kick it back to them and say, how can we make this more Boxborough specific?
That's probably the only way we can do it, because and again, this goes back to, if we were really looking to do something useful to help not just water supply, but also to look at the runoff and all the stuff that goes into our stormwater systems that are our own, to Boxborough's, we would want to do an analysis of each one of the basins as they sit and exist as the water crosses over into us and over us and through us, and then take a look at how that impacts our basins that we're looking at adding water flow to. And again, all of these things help us to look at what's being done through our own drainage systems that Boxborough controls. And this stuff can also affect water quality in a big manner.
I fear a study like that you're describing would be fairly pricey. So we have to keep that in mind against all the other things we might want to do. So,
well, I think that's one of the things, Les, that if you stop and think about it, some of the contaminations that we'd be looking at in the future would be something that happens because of our stormwater collection system.
Okay, so what we'd like to do is kick it back to them and say, how can you make this more Boxborough specific? These numbers are too high.
Mm-hmm.
I would say something more different than just Boxborough specific. I don't know, something that doesn't paint an overly rosy picture, or
just something that would give a more definitive answer as to what's available to Boxborough only.
I mean, I would think of just as first order, just do linear apportionment based on area and see what the answer is. And then another cut would be, well, now let's look at the flows between the subbasins, and go on it goes. But a full-blown hydrogeological study about all that is pretty complicated, right?
Well, it wouldn't have to be hydrogeological. It would just have to be a hydrology study that says here we account for the certain extractions in water. And known extractions and future projections from other basins that are above us.
Is there any way we could possibly gauge the amount of water being extracted in the parts of our basins that belong to other towns?
Well,
They have the water extracted for the basin as a whole, and I think they have a number for Boxborough, so you could just subtract them.
Yeah, right. So I wonder remind me, where do they get the extraction numbers for the basin as a whole?
it should be, and again, this is, river studies or stream studies that was done either by the Geological Survey or some of the water stuff for the DEP and MWRA in certain areas.
Or maybe the extraction numbers are just based on population and average consumption.
Could be. It's been done, the Ipswich River, the Charles River, all these things have been studied for them for that very same reason as to what, even the Assabet River. They've done some very definitive studies about what's being extracted and where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think USGS reports have those.
Yeah.
Okay. My final comment is that when this document gets opened in Adobe, there's a little heading up at the top in the tab has a name of the file. And in one of the versions I saw, it said environmental assessment, but I think the full title was Environmental Assessment Comprehensive Water Resources Report. And I'd like to make sure that tab is more accurate and simply says Comprehensive Water Resources Report Final or something like that. I found it very misleading to look on my computer and I'm looking for this report and I see environmental assessment up in the tab at the top of the page. And it took me a long time to realize that was our report.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a metadata issue that Janet understands, right, Janet?
Yes, Janet.
100%.
Tell me how to solve
it. Go into File, Information, Properties, and then you enter the subtitle there.
Yeah.
Can we change that ourselves?
And those and they don't have to agree with what's actually written on the document itself, right? I mean, that's the point.
Well, you were just asking them to update it, so they'll do it. Yeah. Good comment. We don't want people to be confused that there's some other report.
All right. Well, that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Is my comment now showing up on the screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, good. I didn't want to be surprised. Right. Okay, so this is what I'm putting into the mix.
You remember what button you pushed to do that?
I just went and clicked over on the next tab that I have up here. So I guess the sharing applies to anything I've clicked on. That's kind of interesting. So this comment's already been addressed because I spoke to Emily about it way back when. In fact, I think I copied everybody on this call about it. And where there's a statement in the report that said that Boxborough relies on a network of surface water features, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a comment in that part of the report that says the part highlighted in yellow, an additional fire pond may be developed north of Route 111 in a central location. I spoke to both the chief and Michael Johns about this. There is no such plan. That came out of a misreading of a set of minutes, I believe. Emily's aware of that. She's already going to correct that. I'm just making a note here that this has already been flagged and going to be addressed by Emily in the next spin of this thing. There's no plan right now for an additional fire pond north of 111. So my recommendations for adding stuff to section 5.6 drinking water supply alternatives. I think Brian already mentioned this. I think we're on the same page. I guess explore feasibility of regional public water systems with adjoining towns, prioritizing those areas most sensitive to long-term drought or water quality threats. So the twist here is that we maybe want to understand which are the areas that are most sensitive to give some priority to what we would want to do first. Table 510, estimated future drinking water demand by basin. There's a statement that estimates of future residential demand are based on population growth models, but no estimates for future commercial demand are given due to a lack of planning framework or assumptions. I'm asking, can the worst case estimates be made for future commercial development and demand? And Cindy, this is something that maybe the planning board wants to try to weigh in on. Even absent development on undeveloped land, what can be done to make worst case estimates for future commercial development? I think we have a handle on what we can do about residential development, but maybe the issue is how to handle undeveloped potential commercial land.
Yeah, that was one of my comments. I think I gave you last time, and maybe it was in that survey that we filled out for Alec, but some sort of sensitivity analysis. I know it's an unknown, but they could plug in some numbers and run some sensitivity on that.
Yeah. So we're on the same wavelength.
Commercial, they did add commercial to their water demand projections, right?
No, it's based on current commercial. I believe, almost positive. They said they have no way of estimating future commercial demand because they don't know what the plans are for future commercial. I mean, kind of an oxymoron, but that's why I say, can the worst case estimate be made? Septic system regulations. I found in exploring this that there's a broken link, which I call it here, but this is kind of asking from Brian Lynch's wisdom on here. Should the town, the Board of Health, require more frequent inspections than allowed in the January 8th, 2025 revision of subsurface disposal of sewage regulations? In other words, that in there, I think, says in a nutshell, it doesn't require a certain frequency of inspections. There has to be no less than a number. It gives you a range. But that, in the document from Weston and Sampson, that points to a thing there that's broken. But the real document that I have here in the second line, that link works, and that's where the current document is that has our regulations in it, which I forget whether that's final. That's the January 8, 2025 revision. Is that final now at this point, Brian?
I don't. I would say January 8th, 25. It could be final because that's before I got back on the board.
Well, anyway, I think the gist of this was that although the way we write the regulations now, that you have so many you should do a minimum on an annual or semi-annual basis. But should we tighten that up by saying you must do so many inspections so that we have a more frequent inspection of septic systems?
Let me bring that up at the board meeting tomorrow and see what we can do legally.
Yeah.
We have a constraint that says we have to be within, how should we say, DEP guidelines.
Yeah. I mean, this might be low-hanging fruit. If the issue is septic systems, and then more frequent pumping might be a simple solution to problem areas. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people that brag they don't pump their systems at all, which I don't know how that works, but that's all right.
I don't know. We pump ours every year, so.
Brian, I do not floss my teeth. Of course I do twice a day, and I pump every other year, not every year, because I don't have to. But come on, people. Flush teeth.
We have a very old system, so we don't want to burden it anymore. So.
Right.
I just realized the importance of your leaching field having a vent. I didn't
having what?
Quite. Leaching fields are supposed to have vents.
Yes.
Vent pipes.
Well, not all. It depends on the field. A lot of times it's vented through the house system for vents. And the reason being is because the vent can sometimes release some very nauseous causing fumes.
Mm-hmm.
And typically they want to have that as high as possible. The systems like the Presby systems and some of the others that require vents in the field are because they're attempting to provide not an anaerobic environment, but an aerobic environment.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference is in how you treat the water leaving the system to be leached back into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can't make a
what was explained to me was that vent. I'm sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Well, you can't make a blanket statement. It depends on how you're trying to treat the water, either aerobically or anaerobically.
Well, someone was pointing out to me that the vents removed hydrogen sulfide, which can deteriorate.
Yeah, you don't want to smell that too often.
By the way, on this topic, I hate to digress, but it caught my attention the other day. You seen a news item the other day where some fellows went down into a tank and were overcome and died?
Yes.
Due to hydrogen sulfide. And I was shocked to read that because I always thought, based upon one whiff of that stuff, it would be so overpowering that you could never overdose. But I read that you quickly get unsensitized to the smell, and you don't smell it anymore, and therefore you don't leave the danger zone.
Well, that's why they have OSHA has some very strict regulations about people going into enclosed spaces.
Yes. Your nose won't save you, in other words.
Right. I
didn't know that. So therefore, I will not take a job as a septic system inspector.
Well, you don't go in the tank, hopefully.
And I think we should ask them to add a section listing recommended sources for funding for additional work. I think that makes some sense. I think we talked about that, in fact.
Yeah, we did.
And the appendices are kind of messed up, I thought. In fact, I just realized again that we had two documents, ostensibly the same, but they weren't. One was a Word version, which is in Word, so that it would be convenient for editing and so forth. The PDF version of that was more complete. It actually had tables in it that didn't appear in the Word document. So going back and forth between these two, I might have gotten confused, but I think that Appendix B, you need to look at Brian's comments on the recharge calculations, where he's caught that. Appendix C is the septic system inspections. The reports are missing in that actual document, but the reports exist. They appeared elsewhere. So they need to fix that, put the reports in there, and close up the title page from the body. They got separated somehow. Townwide water balance. The pages are out of order, and the PFAS articles, it needs a title page. And my question for Emily is, will the comments that come out of this exercise tonight be included in an updated Appendix F, which is where the comments go? For the record. So that's what I'm throwing into the mix. Now let's go on to what I gleaned from. Sorry, go ahead.
Can I ask you a question about that? So on Appendix C, which is the septic system one I was looking at as well.
Yeah.
What is the concern that there are reports that are not in there?
Well, if they're in there, they're not associated with that part of the report. I've seen them. They were in there somewhere in either the PDF or the Word document, but they need to be brought together so that they're in one place. They were at one time they were passed around as a standalone document. Do you remember that?
So Appendix C PDF that I reviewed has the information that they want to include redacted by eliminating street address numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's Appendix C. So when you say reports, is there something beyond?
No, it's that. Table? It's that. It just was missing in the Word version, I think. So.
Well, because it can't be in the Word version because it's a PDF only.
Well, I assume it was generated from Word. I don't know.
Well, no, they said that might be. Actually, they said they got a PDF. And that's why they couldn't do a further breakdown of the information, because my original comment was last time, the table is not sorted by any of the column headings. It's not by date. It's not by system type. It's not by size. It's not by day of inspection. It's not by alphabetical street. It's by no sorting of any.
You're way ahead of me, but it's pretty trivial these days that turn word loose on a PDF document and reconstruct a Word document from it. So,
right, but what's the value for this? I think what what Emily had responded was that, that's what we got. And they did do some summary of it to come up with the tier 1 properties, that sort of thing. But I just want to make sure we're not asking for reports beyond what we've already seen in the PDF.
No. My point here was, I forget whether I was looking at the PDF version of the report or the Word, but they were not together in the report, so they appeared to be missing, but they were not missing in the universal sense. Just want to make sure it's all there in one place in the final document.
Oh, I'm sure they will have. I mean, yeah. So I don't know that. I don't want to ask them for more reports data, because essentially what we're getting is a table that is a PDF table provided to them, and they're just providing it, copying it essentially.
But anyway, the header for that was not close to the data, so they need to fix that. The title page wasn't there. So
okay.
Well, last time, Jan, I think you felt that the street numbers should be removed.
And I've seen they've done that. The other thing that hasn't happened, and again, it's not in the budget, it's not part of this first phase, but I said I'd be willing to take that data if it were provided to us and try to organize the tabular information so that it did convey some relationships if there are any between these entries. It's really hard to read something that doesn't have an order to it. And the other thing that was not clear was whether there were some historical reports of something that might have failed, but then got fixed. It is unknown by reading that table whether, okay, there was an early failure, it got replaced or fixed, or something was done, so that the universe of problem locations could be smaller, just based on the information we have, than what that table reflects. Because I believe there are dual entries for the same location. You could imagine if a location is a tier 1 location because of poor soils or other physical constraints that make it not a great system, or the system itself was never great, that they're going to have repeated problems that could get reported in this database that they then just copied and provided to us as Appendix C. So I feel like it looks like the problem's bigger for the data we have, because we're not matching up. Let's just pretend it's Main Street, one Main Street. Well, maybe one Main Street is actually in the table 3 times, but it happens to be collapsed. So I was willing to take that information, the deeper information, try to organize it, ask key questions of that table that give us a little bit more insights, which is not what we're asking them to do with no budget left or whatever. So I guess the comment is, can we get that source information that you obtained from Neshoba, Associated Boards of Health, so that we could understand that a little bit better? Because right now we're presenting it as if they're like, we have information on 68 systems. Is it 68? And that, certain number, 9 of them are failing. Okay, 9 are failing currently as of what date? There's 9 outstanding failed systems that haven't been addressed. I mean, these questions people might ask reading the report. And maybe the Board of Health has that answer. And they'll say, oh, we're on top of the 9, not to worry. But I don't know. So I just had questions about chapter 6 when it talked about whether, and I'll send this comment along, Les, in an email. I'm not trying to separate from what you're saying. I just want to stay in Appendix C because we're talking about septic, and this is a very small thing, which is, it lists 164 tier 1 properties, but then sometimes it says it's 168 tier 1 properties, and sometimes it says it's 116 tier 1 properties. So I'm not sure what the differences are. And then we talk about having 68 systems, but the table says there's 73 systems evaluated. So there's just something about the numbers. And I'll send that in a comment. But I think when we describe Appendix C in Chapter 6, there's some inconsistencies in the text with respect to the total number of Tier 1 properties that they identified and how many for which they had information that they could evaluate. So that was my comment on Appendix C, and that's that.
Well, that's a huge amount of. I mean, I'm doing a very simple by thing. Do you want to provide all of that as a?
Yeah, I'm going to send you. Yeah, I've got an email queued up here. I just wanted to have the conversation in the call.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah,
Janet, could you send a copy to me so I could bring it to the Board of Health?
Yes, I will just send it to the. So we've discussed it in the meeting now. So yes, I can send an email to everybody that says I'm just going to make a comment about Appendix C. Yeah.
Yeah. Now the reports you're talking about are still the PDF reports that we talked about earlier, right?
Right, which we asked
Weston
Emily to, Weston Sampson, Emily at Weston Sampson to redact, which they did. There's no numbers on there. But we also asked, could you just provide us that so-called raw data, which, as we understand, is really just a PDF file, but they would at least be the addresses. So if I saw, 1 Main Street 3 times, I know it was the same property.
Okay, great. Now, but did what you just said, have you given that request to Emily?
Well, we talked about it on the last call when she was on.
Okay, but it might be good to send it her an email to ask for it specifically. I've forgotten.
Okay, all right. Let me make a note about that then.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Okay,
Janet, what would you do with this information? I mean, is this something you want to get into the report?
I wanted to. I guess I had a couple of thoughts. One is, I think information in a table should tell its own story, and that table does not tell a story. It doesn't. It's not clear what it's supporting. It's confusing, to be honest, and because they didn't create the table, there's no issue there, but it's just that I felt like if I was reading this report and I was like, oh, good, it's all in Appendix C. I'm going to Appendix C. And other than the redactions that we requested, the table itself doesn't really explain. I think it could say a lot more. Are there a lot of really old systems? Is that what we're talking about? I mean, presumably, since there's increased regulation and specifications and requirements over time, some of these are very old systems, that things are getting better. But this could leave the impression without sort of there's no organization by date, even though dates are provided. There's just one example. There's no sense of, oh, well, things have gotten better because we have a Board of Health that's enforcing the rules and they permit things. And I feel like we should make sure that that sort of much more subtle message is still coming across, right? Because things are better in general, right? So, that was just one example, and kind of just a mishmash of information and not sure. It also begs the question, well, there's 9 failing systems. Okay, really? There were 9 failing systems. There are 9 failing systems in 2025 that we know about. Like, have they been resolved? Maybe it's half of that. Maybe it's less than that. But those are the 2 examples. I don't go on and on about this, but I feel like there's more information that we should be if we're going to present this information, we need to be able to defend it. And if someone were to ask you in a public meeting, so Janet, tell me about Appendix C, I wouldn't be able to do that reliably because I feel like the table doesn't convey a particular message. And I also don't think that it actually supports the statements made in Chapter 6.
Okay, so if you get this information, you'll take a look at it. Where do we go from there? I mean, it sounds like this could be a fairly major revision to the report that Weston and Sampson won't want to hear about.
Yeah, that's my question was going to be, do you want to ask Weston and Sampson to do this, or do you want to extract?
No.
Make your own?
I've said 3 times. I never asked them to revise it. I simply asked for the information so that we as a committee could take on looking at it more deeply.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
You want to do the work of generating this better view of the data than they present.
That's right.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Good work. There's a lot there. I commend you. So where were we? Is there anything else now for that until we get on to the planning board's comments? Let's do that. Let's see if this works this time. Do you see now a page saying summary of comments, input from the planning board?
Yes. Good.
Okay, so I got three emails from Alec, which apparently each one was apparently input from one or more members of the planning board on their comments on the report. I did what I could to extract the highlights of their comments and just bulleted them here. May have missed some things, may have used some different wording, but this is the sense of it. And my thought was let Cindy take a look at this and help us understand what we should do to take the next steps on this set of comments, provide more feedback to Weston and Sampson, and so on and so on. So, one of the things that stood out right away to me was to somehow provide the words were a readable summary, no more than 10 pages. Sounds like there's maybe a need for a better executive summary or something like that. So I don't know, Cindy, can you enlighten on some of these items that I can't?
Yeah, so just to explain these comments, Alec decided to create a survey to help planning board members provide feedback, which I don't know kind of what the point of that was, maybe to force us to do it in simpler ways. So you're not going to get substantive. I mean, you'll get a little bit, but I mean, the questions were pretty simplistic. So I'll just set it up with that. When the planning board discussed this, most folks felt they didn't have time or hadn't had an opportunity to really read the report. So I think everybody felt a little overwhelmed by, the volume of the information in the report. And so that was sort of the comment about the summary. I would say everything else sort of speaks for itself. So there were 3 people out of the 5-member board that responded to the survey. I don't know whose comments are whose. I think a couple of these are mine. But
yeah, that wasn't identified what I got from Alex.
Right. And I think, like I said, it's unfortunate, but I don't think people really had time to dig into it. I think a presentation would be great. I told them that Weston and Sampson was going to do a presentation to the select board probably late in October. The sentiment was it would have been nice to have a presentation to us, sort of summarizing. Everybody feels short on time. Some people didn't feel they had the time to read the report, but were interested in it. So if you want meaningful feedback from the planning board before that time, we probably would like a presentation. Else, when Weston and Sampson does their presentation, either planning board should attend or watch a recording and then might be able to provide you some feedback. But, I'm not making excuses for folks, but I just think people were a little overwhelmed by the volume of information and weren't able to provide substantive feedback.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and we've been following the bouncing ball now for quite a while. The issue is that the budget only allows for one public presentation by Weston and Sampson, and then we'll have to take it from there if there's going to be any more, presentation to in other forums. And to do it later would defeat the point of, providing the feedback in time to modify the report. So if there's things here that you think, in your judgment, are input from the planning board you'd like to see addressed in a next minor update or a revision of what we had before us, now would be the time to do it. Some of these might clearly are much more substantive and would probably be pushed into a later phase of work.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can kind of go through this list and sort of figure out what are immediate and what are long-term requests. The executive summary, I didn't go back to see how many pages it was, but that's something they probably could do now. The water use projection about commercial, we've talked about that. I don't know if that's something they're willing to spend time on now or that's a future item. I think either you guys or Weston and Sampson just have to see if this is something, these other bullets are things that are based on what they have, doable quickly or not. I'm guessing most of them are not easily doable. But, we don't know what the scope of work was, and it's really for you guys to assess, but we were asked.
Yeah, by the way, on that note, Cindy, I realized that we never did put up the scope of work or the original RFP on the website. So I can send it to you, and I should probably get it put up on the web so people can look at it. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, that's it. Like I said, these bullets sort of speak for themselves. You guys can determine whether or not there's anything here that Weston and Sampson can do to tweak the report. Like I said, maybe the executive summary. But the other items look like they require a little more study. But, we were asked very sort of simple questions, mostly focused on recommendations, because I think that's what you talked to us about, steering the board that way. So that's what these are.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stood out to me as of keen interest for the planning board is a consistent message that, recharge is really important. And so they want to maximize the amount of minimize impervious surface in any future development. So I think that's something I think is dear to the heart of the planning board. So it's in the reports, in the recommendations. Maybe it needs to be made more clear.
Yeah, I don't know why you summarized, but I think someone had a comment about, 8% recharge is, what was it? 8% was the recharge rate currently, but if 10% would be problematic. What was the? Maybe
I don't know. That came from whoever provided that comment. The report just shows the current rate of recharge. Sorry, the current amount of impervious surface.
8% impervious and 10% would be a problem.
I don't remember whether that statement's in the report or not. Do you recall the report indicates where there would be an issue relative to where we stand now? I don't remember. Or whether that person was making their own judgment on that.
I think the point is less, you tried to excerpt the comment, but you kind of lost that one. So, I'm happy to have you summarize, but we don't want to lose some of it. And
let's see.
It was noting the additional reasoning for the planning board to be mindful of impervious spaces during site plan review. Impervious space is critical for aquifer refill rates, and currently at 8%, it's fine. But if we exceed 10%, that could pose a challenge. That was the comment.
Yeah, did I not capture that? Let's see.
So they must have pulled that out of the report.
I remember seeing the 8% myself. I don't remember seeing.
Oh yeah, no, it's in one of the comments, and it's there is a table in the report about the amount of impervious surface.
So the second to last bullet, I think, report provides rationale for minimizing.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Yeah. That was my summary of what's going on there with it. The report does provide a basis or a rationale for why you want to minimize impervious surface in developments.
Right, but I think what that person's looking for maybe is a tipping point.
Yeah, I don't know whether that was identifiable within this body of work that Weston and Sampson did. I think they identified where we are today, and there were some metrics on average. Other towns, maybe somebody else remembers exactly what it was, but my recollection was we're not doing too badly compared to what others are doing, but I can't quantify that right now.
I think the other question, Les, on that, just to add a little bit to it, that impervious surface, they're looking at the whole town in general. What happens when the development occurs with a private well on the site or even a community public water supply well? And what happens when the impervious surface gets to the point where there's insufficient water being recharged back into the ground to service that well that's particular? So it's not necessarily an overall problem, but it can be a very significant lot by lot or development by development problem.
A localized problem.
Yeah.
So when we have the town engineer reviewing each development project, the recharge and all has to comply with the state stormwater management standards. But
don't hold your breath on those as being adequate.
Well, okay. So if that's a concern, maybe that needs to be highlighted, or not all developments get trigger trigger that level of review. So, you know, I think the point is, you know, we can point to this report and say, you know, yes, it's important to minimize impervious surface, and this is why. So that helps the planning board when, you know, conditioning projects. But I guess I'm a little concerned, Brian, if you don't even think the stormwater management standards are sufficient.
Well, there again, stormwater management standards have to live with the municipal standards also, so they can't be too stringent. But in some cases, when you have large impervious surfaces being planned for whatever reason, and there's a public, you know, or community water supply well supplying the water for the facility, the recharge to that well becomes critical. One example of that is on, we'll say, a large facility on Burroughs Road that has a water supply well where the pavement runs up almost adjacent to the public water supply well. And even the DEP said that is illegal. So there's things that have happened that I don't know how they got there, but they're there.
Are they under some kind of enforcement action?
I don't know. I don't know what DEP did with it because it's their purview at that point.
I think I think I know what you're talking about. I think DEP's take on that was, we leave it alone for now, but if anybody ever wants to extract more water there, we're going to have to talk to them.
Yeah, well, it could be. I don't know what the outcome was, but I know they're aware of it.
Don't know.
Well, anyway, that was sort of the comment. So maybe you want to add to that bullet something about, you know, identify a potential tipping point by project, or I don't know, maybe you want to add some context to it. But
So Cindy, you know, I know that the board didn't get a chance to read, it's a long report, but in chapter 4 where they introduce the 8%, they do go into a lot of detail about, like in section 435, about how impervious surfaces impact water resources from a couple of different perspectives. And I feel like that's, you know, pretty good qualitatively. Like, it's not, because it's all hypothetical, it'd be hard to be super specific, except what they did do is they did go by drainage basin to talk about, this is in table 4.8, build out by groundwater basin. And so, you know, they are showing the locations where the greatest undeveloped property exists and where the, you know, where you could have the greatest increase in impervious surface. And like, I think that's a lot of good information for the planning board. I don't know that it's a good idea to say 10% is too much, 11% is too much, right. You know, right? I think it's better to kind of think about it, you know, like Brian's saying, it's a localized problem. It could be highly localized and be an issue. But it also has impacts by basin that's worth noting, you know, and so, yeah, I think the report kind of covers that. I don't think you're going to get a magic number, and I don't know that we should try to operate around that anyway.
Right. Just which table were you referring to, Janet?
Well, it's really 4 point, well, there's a number of them, but the one I was just mentioning was 4.8, build out by groundwater basin. But what precedes this is the discussion of impervious surface. It talks about why that's important for protecting the quality of water in people's wells. And then it goes into a build out analysis. And so I think it ties it together all in chapter 4.
Yeah. Okay. It just made me wonder whether or not, you know, that would lead to some sort of basin specific requirements on top of the stormwater standards. I mean, we do have a stormwater bylaw. I don't know if that would be the place, but are you suggesting, I guess I have to dig into this more, but
it's a phase 1 report.
Yeah.
You know, right. So, and I think also this report provides information, but it's not entirely directed towards making planning board permitting decisions, right?
Yeah.
It's a descriptive, it's not a prescriptive report.
All right.
The third bullet here, which I think this is almost right out of the person's comment. Add information on the quality of commercial treated sewage versus residential Title V septic systems. I guess the person is interested in I'm not sure whether they were trying to understand whether or not there's goodness in going to commercial sewage treatment systems because they will produce a better quality of effluent, or just want to know. I'm not sure what to do with this comment, or suggested to add that information in there. I'm not sure adding that would be in scope for what we contracted with Weston and Sampson, but it might be something we want to think about for a follow-on piece of work.
Well, again, Les, I'm looking at the actual forms, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure where you're getting that response from.
I write it right off one of the forms.
Because it says the form, if I'm reading this correctly. Sorry, I got too many windows open here. Impacts of commercial development is unclear versus residential. To respond to the question, are there potential risks or challenges you believe the plan does not adequately address?
No, that's a different one.
Yeah. Huh. Well, we only got 3 responses, and there's only 6 questions, so maybe I'm not understanding it. Anyway, I'm not gonna, let's see. We didn't discuss this, so I'm really not able to add anything more to the discussion that the planning board feels this or that. I'm just, like I said, this.
Yeah, I didn't make it up. So, I mean, my question is this something that we should think about trying to address in another piece of work in the future? And what would we do with it? I mean, I think the science of septic and sewage treatment systems on any scale is pretty well understood. So what would we do by chiming in on that at this point? What would be the outcome? A desire to move more towards commercial systems, or a better scale of system, or I don't know. I don't know what the outcome would be or what direction that was heading in.
Well, if it doesn't affect what we're doing to wrap up this report, let's ignore it for now.
Yeah.
Cindy, my comment on the planning board's comments was that they did not think that this report aligned well with the master plan. And I'm curious about what they meant by that.
Yeah, again, we didn't really, I mean, one of the comments we sort of made was that this plus the climate action plan plus, someday a housing production plan should all sort of be feeding into our next master plan. I can't really speak to what others felt why this didn't align, but I think we just don't have a picture as to what, this is sort of supposed to be the beginning of a water master plan. So I can't tell you why people felt maybe what didn't align, but this seems like a good start to a water master plan. But I don't want to speak for others. So I think maybe a master plan, if we were, following our last master plan, it was pretty simple series of recommendations. So maybe there's sort of a formatting. This is a very dense document. Maybe the formatting doesn't align with what we're picturing for a future master plan. I don't know. I'm just hypothesizing. I wouldn't take it too much.
Well, in the master plan, there are 11 actions that pertain to water.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 of them we have lead responsibility for. 1 of them we share lead responsibility with the planning board and the Board of Health. 2 the planning board have lead responsibility for. 2 the Economic Development Committee have lead responsibility for. And 2 there was another one. 1 the Conservation Commission has responsibility, and 1 the Select Board has responsibility for. So we're not all of the master plan actions are in our court.
We're the ones that WRC is responsible for. Do you have those at their fingertips? I'm just curious. Does that report align with the couple that you guys are responsible for? Because maybe that's
the ones that we were responsible for was long-term planning for water.
Okay.
So I think we've done phase 1 of that with this report. And the other one was identify priority areas for municipal water supply. And this report does not go into that. But our other work, I mean, we identified west of 495 as a priority for municipal supply.
That might be, sorry, go ahead.
The municipal supply question is really, it's a huge question, and it's not something that can be readily answered, I don't think. We're going to need a lot of input from the people of Boxborough, from the select board, as to how much the town is willing to take on. There's going to have to be information about the reasons for it and the alternatives. So I think the next phase, could look at that.
Yeah, maybe in your executive summary, maybe you do want to reference that this is phase one of an item in the town's 2015 whatever master plan. That might be nice to have that reference if it's not already in there. I really don't have that document very well. You guys have been looking at it a lot longer than I have, but there could be a mention of this is an exercise, not an exercise, but an effort consistent with the master plan. That might tickle people a little bit, it'll just align maybe with that it is a goal, at what action number and all that. You might want to reference that. So that's something you could put in the introduction.
That's not a bad idea.
Get credit for your activity here, guys. It's a lot of hard work.
But remember all these other boards that have lead responsibility for water-related items as well. And there's nothing, there wasn't much we could really do about that.
Well, the whole master plan, we're still always trying to get our arms around it. That's an aspirational thing, but Alec is trying to kind of keep everybody on task for how it progressed. But maybe the next time we do a master plan, it'll have a little different feel to it. I don't know yet, but anyway, I think perhaps put in this document at the upfront that this was an action item under the master plan. I think you may as well get credit there. But it's good work.
When would the next master plan would be 2030, right?
Well, Alec probably will start working on it 2027 maybe. So, maybe a year and a half from now. But all of these plans, I think, bubble up into a master plan. What I would like to see is the master plan, the next go around, referencing these documents as sort of subsets of that plan. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel. This is the water, a good chunk of the water master plan section. So
it's not so much a water master plan as a planning resource document that sort of tries to state what we know about the current state of things,
Right. I just, I just have a general problem with, we do all these studies in town and nobody looks at them, and they're not. Well,
that's an ongoing issue, right? By the way, here I found the thing that what you were curious about, where my impervious surface comment came from. I don't know which one this is. This is one of the three I got from Alec. The sentence says, impervious space, I think they meant surface, is critical for aquifer refill rates, and currently at 8% is fine, but if we exceed 10%, that could pose a challenge. I don't know where that exceed 10% being a challenge comes from. I don't think that's stated in the actual report. Maybe someone else remembers. But it's in one of the three things Alec sent. Maybe Alec, maybe you haven't seen all the things that Alec sent there. I don't know.
No, I've seen those comments. Well, I think, again, as a general suggestion, perhaps, the Water Resources and the Planning Board, should meet at some point. And, let's schedule. I mean, we've just been so busy with so many things, but now that this phase one is done, it might be value having, after the presentation from Weston and Sampson, having you guys come and, we'll talk a little bit about, did it serve the purpose? But I think we haven't digested it. Honestly, I don't think the members really have.
It takes a while. No, we've been trolling over this now for quite a while, so we're sort of used to it and familiar with the terms and so forth. So yeah, it's a lot.
Well, I think it's going to be important for all of the boards in town to be at that select board hearing, because Weston and Sampson is only going to make the one presentation.
Right.
Right, but it'll be recorded, and I think we're all kind of overwhelmed with data, but having a nice PowerPoint that we can watch with some explanation would be a really useful thing. So I'm assuming it will be recorded, and that should be available to folks.
Oh, it'll be recorded for sure.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Well, on this sort of a topic of getting the information out in a way that's understandable and I don't want to say simplified, but digestible or whatever. We have with us tonight Murphy from the Bucksboro News, who I spoke to earlier about this very topic. And he has floated the idea of somehow maybe he would help produce I'll call the Reader's Digest version of the report so that could be put in the hands of anyone who wants to not spend hours and hours and hours going over things, but get the sense of what's important here. So I think that's something that we want to work on, and maybe enlist a little help from Boxborough News to help format it and shape it in a way that is agreeable. They've been doing a lot of reporting on what we've been working on, but it might be nice to put it in a bundle somehow so that they could, point to it. So something we want to think about in the very near future. So, Al, I appreciate your offer to help with that. I think that'd be super. So anyway, those are our comments that we gave. The one question I asked her, I don't know whether anyone objected, but did the comments we previously provided to Weston and Sampson get addressed in what I call the final version? I think they did. So these comments that you heard tonight are additional on top of that. The new ones are from the planning board. And so we will send all these back to Emily and do some follow-up and see what is going to be done with them. In some cases, there might be some language added to the report. In other cases, it might be something that has to be added, moved on to another phase of work. I don't know.
Yeah, Les, I like your list of the summary of the planning board requirements, comments, I mean. But it might be good to add to that the ones that we know to be future work, to distinguish it from something we want them to change the report for.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Some things are definitely for the future. So the next item on the agenda was preparation for the October 27th. That's the nominal date for when the select board will be able to host a presentation by Weston and Sampson at their meeting. That date happens to be the first select board meeting date after special town meeting. So it might be agreeable, but on the other hand, it's not fixed in stone. So we'll hold it as a planning date, but stay tuned. It's on the calendar to kind of try to make that happen. There is no draft
penciled in, as it were.
Penciled in, as they say. Yeah, pencil me in. There is no draft presentation yet available. It sounds like once we give our feedback to Emily, she will do another version or spin of the quote final document and allow us to provide input. I don't know how that's going to work because we will have no more meetings really scheduled between now and, well, I guess that's not true. We will have one more meeting mid-October before the October 27th presentation date. So that may be our chance to do a final wrap on comments, which, by the way, is scheduled for October 21st.
That's our next meeting?
Yes, October 21st, 7:30.
Oh, yeah.
So we've been talking all along that the big challenge here is educate people on all these things. I happen to have met a fellow today that had moved into town maybe 2 years ago, and he's very aware of water, and he's got a hard water problem, just like a lot of us, and he's got a treatment system installed. So there are people who are aware of water and want to know more. We need to get the word out and point them in the direction of resources that will be helpful to them. So the public outreach and presentation, I know it's going to involve some sweat equity from us to go around and talk to people, I think. Try to arrange to be at a council on aging meeting or at a luncheon that they have every month and meet up with the planning board. I think the planning board is going to have a lot of things they want to take under their wing in terms of things that they want to address that's come out of this work. No big surprises, but some of this does involve planning board's expertise and responsibilities. And we've always been a board that's kind of tries to bridge between other boards and how to address water-related issues. Sometimes they're Board of Health centric, sometimes they're planning board centric, sometimes they fall through the cracks. Our job is to make sure not too much falls through the cracks. That's the way I look at it. Item 8 on the agenda is the update on the Sustainability Committee's request for input on the Climate Action Plan. Well, this is a little bit garbled and confused. So what I sent around before wasn't actually the Climate Action Plan. Alec straightened me out on this. It was actually the Climate Action Plan, was the Priority Action Plan. So it's different than the Climate Action Plan. So the Climate Action Plan that we would like to make comments on has yet to be released. So stay tuned, basically, is what this is all about. I'm not sure when that's going to be, but when that's available, Alec assured me that there will be plenty of time to prepare input and provide that back to the planner.
Well, we effectively, oh no, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the Agricultural Commission. We did provide comments on that document.
On the Priority Action Plan?
Yeah. It's a very awkward process I mean, the names are the Climate Action Plan is the CAP and the Climate Action Priority Plan is the CAPP. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Cut the crap,
Right, I know. So on to reports. So I'll lead off with an update on the water line. So some things that I learned recently. There was a report or a rumor that some work had been done by Littleton Water and Mass DOT on Mass Avenue regarding the water line extension from Swanson down to Codman, and maybe something was done regarding a potential extension towards the bridge that will cross 495. Well, the status on that is that the pipes have been connected. A T has been put in place there where they're joined, and but no pipe installed. Sometimes I had used the word a short stub. Maybe there's a short stub, but there was no additional trenching done towards the bridge. The pipes are in the ground and they're connected. That Mass DOT has also trenched up towards the Boxborough Executive Park. You can actually see, I went down there today to see it myself, so you can see, and the road has been trenched and backfilled and asphalted over in some areas right up to the Boxborough Executive Park. So that is consistent with what we've heard all along. There's not going to be a pipe across the bridge. There is supposedly going to be a utility bay that's capable of carrying a water main in the future, and meanwhile, other things, presumably, I don't know, the other things are fiber optic cables for the most part. I don't know if there's any plans to put a gas line on that bridge. Maybe Brian Lynch or somebody knows about that.
I believe they replaced gas mains before they began construction.
There was work there, yes. So I don't know how they did that. So they will presumably go back onto a utility bay once it's built. I don't know.
Oh.
That's one of the meetings I attended recently, and I can't remember if it's Select Board or FinCom or something, but somebody claimed that the pipe had been installed across the bridge. Had you heard that from somebody else, or?
Yeah, no, I heard that rumor, but it's not true.
Okay, so maybe you need to let folks know that's not the case.
I had always wanted to get plans for that utility bay. I don't know if that's possible or not.
I've never seen them.
We've never seen the bridge plans.
Right.
The other thing I want to say about the Littleton water main is they did a really good job with the temporary paving on Codman Hill Road.
Yeah, they did.
You can drive the speed limit on that road on the temporary paving, and it does not feel rough. And that's, that's for all the people who go to the transfer station and stuff. That's a really cool thing.
Is the repaving in as part of this project? Is that those roads supposed to be repaved or no?
Yeah.
Well, it's that part of the project is under Mass DOT, so I don't know what their plans are. They'll repave 111 in some sections, but I don't know. I have no data on that.
But what about Codman and Swanson?
That I'm not sure whether there's any money in there to pay the town to pave it, or whether whether the contractor for Littleton is going to pave it. I don't know. It's a good question.
I believe the funds were provided in the program to pave the road so it comes back.
Yeah, I'll check on that.
It would normally be, I mean, at least partial final paving would normally be included.
I think I saw some fire hydrants along Codmill.
Oh yeah, the fire hydrants are in, and they're, as far as I know, they're charged. So almost, I mean, I don't know when they'll officially announce it, but firefighting capability is at hand, just about. They've been pressurized and tested on the Swanson Road side. I know that. And the fire chief is very aware of that. He's already got a system whereby if there's an emergency and a tanker needs to pull up to one of those hydrants and fill up, they will call the dispatch and let them know that that's happening so that they can monitor the drop in pressure and so on and so on. So planning ahead.
The dispatcher for who?
Littleton.
For Boxborough and Littleton.
So those hydrants will have the capability to actually fill a tanker, not just be used at the proximity of the site that they're located?
Right.
You know, how much, just curious how much a tank or tanker holds?
That's what
The number of 5,000 gallons sticks in my mind, but is that anywhere near close?
Yeah, I think the 3,000 and 5,000 what we have, the fire department.
Yeah.
We had a 10,000 at one time, but that was a semi.
Yeah.
And that does not impact the volumes that are designated to all the folks that have signed on, right? I mean, this is above and beyond the.
Above and beyond. This is
it's free water. Yeah.
Public safety.
Yeah, it doesn't come out of the allocation.
Right.
It's not metered, so there's no charge for it. We don't have Sam here to give us an update from the planning, the select board. Cindy, do you want to add anything beyond what we've already covered for the planning board?
Well, just generally, we had our continued hearing last night on the Campanelli project. So we're still going through that a special permit application for the expansion at the park at Beaver Brook, and yeah, that's the main activity that would be water related. We are reviewing another project along Mass Ave, but that would require a private well, I believe. So it's a fairly substantive amount of clearing and drainage and such. So there's a lot of engineering work to make that one work. But those are the kind of hot items we're looking at right now.
Is that 975 you're talking about? 975
yes, 975 Mass Ave. It's a trade building proposed to be about a little over 10,000 square feet up on the hill. There's a lot of ledge there. It requires some blasting. It's like I said, some engineering challenges to get the stormwater drainage and septic and all of that. So we're reviewing that currently.
Right. That's why when I was chairing the Boxborough Building Committee looking at potential sites for a fire station, we decided to pass on that site.
Well, somebody's making the investment to make it work.
Yep. Steve, anything from the ConsCom?
We actually are looking at the same things the planning board is looking at. The 975 Mass Avenue and Campanelli work.
Okay.
Because there's conservation areas in both of them.
Campanelli hasn't made a filing to you yet, have they?
No, they haven't done that, but I think we were looking at some diagrams of what they're planning to do. and where they're located near wetland areas. I don't think we saw a problem there. They may not do a filing.
Well, they probably haven't submitted even a request for applicability, have they? I mean,
no, not yet. No.
Yeah. No. Okay.
Anything else, Dave?
No, that's all.
Mr. Lynch, anything from the Board of Health that we don't already know?
Well, I just received today the draft of the new well regulations to address transfer testing on sale of
on sale of a home, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
So we haven't reviewed them yet, but they're on paper, shall we say.
Yeah.
Who's drafting those regulations,
Are
Brian?
they built?
The Neshoba board.
Okay. Are they doing this for other towns too?
Well, they've done it for a few other towns. We're just one of the ones that's now picking it up.
Okay. Thank you.
So they're following a kind of template for how they do this, then I guess?
Yeah, we were given choices. We could either follow something from Stowe or we could follow something from Harvard. And I think we're kind of elected to go to the Harvard site situation. But we're looking at it. We don't know all the details.
Okay. Correct. Okay, we
How soon
continue.
are those going to be available?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the comments are going to be. We haven't met as a board to discuss them. That's tomorrow night.
An update on our ongoing discussions with Acton and Littleton water departments. Ongoing means every so often, every few months, roughly once a quarter, we try to get together with Matt Silverman and Matt Mosteller at Acton Water. Brian, you were there. Do you want to give your update on what's happening there?
I can try. The first thing I'll mention, and this won't mean a lot to everybody, but Corey Godfrey, who was the Littleton Water and Sewer Superintendent, who left to take a job with a high-end consulting firm, they got their funding cut by EPA, and so he was laid off. And so we walked into the meeting with Littleton and Acton expecting to see the current water and sewer superintendent plus the Acton water superintendent. And there's Corey Godfrey. He is now working for Acton. So that's Acton's gain because he was a highly competent person.
Yeah. Did you get any insight
we got
to
an
whether
update on them?
Is he taking over, say, the septic side of the house, or do you know how they're dividing up the work, or did you talk to him about that by any chance? How he relates to Matt?
Well, I didn't, but there is no septic.
I don't know how
there is no septic side of the house.
They have a sewer. They have public sewer in Acton. How do they manage that? Not under Acton Water District, obviously, evidently. I don't know.
I think there's a sewer commission.
I think Brian just answered that.
Sewer commission. Okay, yeah.
Board of Health, Brian?
Well, the Board of Health has some input.
So we got an update on MWRA.
Yeah.
What's that?
Oh, nothing. I just said I think it's a sewer commission in Acton.
Okay. We got an update on the MWRA work that those guys are looking into, and 9 towns are going to put out an RFP to decide how they're going to share the costs for an interconnection with MWRA. And we've always had the question was if they were to get water from MWRA and if we were to get water from them, would we have to join MWRA, which is a enormously expensive process. And Matt from Acton didn't seem to think so. He pointed out that we already get water from Littleton, and Acton is authorized to provide water to Boxborough already through the original legislation going back to 1910 or whatever. So they didn't think it was a big deal.
In fact, Acton already delivers water to the Joyce Industrial Park, right?
Right. Yep.
So is Acton one of the 9 towns that's putting in this request, or?
Oh, most certainly. Acton, Littleton, Concord.
Oh.
Concord's been very active in this.
And what's the likelihood?
What's that?
Is this an application or just a probing? What is the likelihood they'll actually be able to connect?
Well, they're just in a study phase, Brian.
Okay.
I think the issue right now is they're trying to figure out how to apportion the cost of pitching in, right?
Yeah, maybe I could just a couple of sentences to MWRA conducted 3 studies. You know, they determined that they had excess water, and they conducted 3 studies on how they might provide that water to the north, west, and south. And the towns in the west are very interested. Towns in the north, maybe not so much. Towns to the south, maybe interested. But some of the towns, Concord, Acton, Littleton, Lincoln is involved, Maynard, maybe Stowe, are definitely interested. And so these guys are all sort of pursuing a parallel track where they're going to plan to do what they were going to do anyway, but they're also planning for MWRA. And so they've got these studies that MWRA did. Now it's up to them to hire somebody to determine how they would allocate those costs to whatever group of town wants to participate. One of the big questions is, you know, it would require a big storage tank, and nobody knows where that would go. But there's a very real possibility that this could happen. And I think the interest among the Metro West towns is a little higher than in the other areas. And I can see this happening.
So we watch it. We meet with the 2 Mets every so often, roughly once a quarter.
It would be good that if it did happen, because the Assabet and Concord River are in a little bit of trouble.
Pardon?
Well, it's because the Assabet River and the Concord River are in a bit of trouble.
Mm-hmm. Basically, it would involve an interconnection to one of their transmission mains, not transmission main, but one of their mains in Framingham. The water would come in through Sudbury.
Well, that's different. I would have thought they might have gone to Marlboro.
Nope. And so apparently Sudbury is not terribly interested, but it would have to go through their town. And so I think Concord is maybe being discussed as the site of a water tank. Does that sound about right, Les? Does that sum up what we're talking about?
Sounds about right. It's a very slow-moving train.
Yeah, this is very long-range planning stuff.
But again, we've articulated to the 2 Mets that our feeling, and of course we have not really talked to the select board about this. It's too bad Sam's not here, but our recommendation, I think, would be right now that we do not plan to connect directly to MWRA. It's a huge expense and a bother, and would put us in the water management business and all that. We'd rather do what we were already doing with Littleton. have them run a pipe down to Boxborough or 2 or 3 and buy water from them and or Acton. So that's the assumption we're using right now. At some point, I mean, they are aware that this is something that we're interested in, so they're keeping us in mind, but there's no formal planning other than that we meet with the 2 of them and let them know what we're doing. So they both have copies of the Weston and Sampson report, by the way. So
That's right.
Public document. So anyway, that brings us to the end of the program. I don't have any other news. Anybody else have other news? Okay. Well, it's time to entertain the next meeting date will be October 21 at 7:30 p.m. And that would be a fine time to make someone to make a motion to adjourn.
Hold it, Les. Are
Pardon?
we clear on how we're getting comments to Weston and ultimately to Weston and Sampson?
Well, you made some modifications, but you and I will talk tomorrow and provide one combined set back to Emily.
Okay, because I think I heard from Cindy one thing to add. I forget what it was. Oh,
Reference to the master plan, town master plan.
correct. I can draft up something for that to go into the
So I have
executive
2
summary.
comments, so I should just send those to the committee unless you'll fold them into one email to Emily?
Yes. I'm not sure I'm
Okay.
going to try to provide a combined document, just one email with everything in it, I guess, or something. We'll figure out something.
Okay.
And she wanted them by middle of next week, as I recall. Let me see. It's in the calendar.
Yesterday sometime, was it?
By the 24th.
Oh, she did.
We have a little time. So that's where we are.
Can I offer a suggestion, Les?
Yes.
If Al's going to write up some kind of a summary of the water resources report, I mean, I know you're talking about education and you're going to want to get this out, but is that something you might want to make available to town meeting folks as a stack of papers or something? Or is that just more paper?
Executive summary, Cindy, the executive summary is already 2 pages. Only 2 pages.
Do you want to make that available at town meeting on October 14th?
We could always, easily do that. It sounds like somebody on the planning board was hoping for a little more extensive executive summary, but not more than 10 pages. So, don't know.
I'm just suggesting for your educate. I know you're trying to educate folks and get them maybe to come to or watch the presentation. I don't know if it's a suggestion, but if it's not final, then maybe it's premature. I just was trying to help you get the word out.
Well, I think the executive summary is probably good enough as it is. We'll talk to Emily about that, see if anything's going to change there. But yeah, get out a short one now and get it out there for town meeting, which will be in advance of the actual Weston and Sampson presentation.
Yeah, and one thing I had suggested to Les was that maybe we put together a summary of what the changes are going to be to the report. Because all these boards have seen the August version of the report. And rather than have them try to read a new final report and figure out what changed, we might want to show them what changed.
Is that something you're going to ask Emily to do as red line strikeout, or?
No, I was thinking it was something we would put together.
Okay. But so not inline edits, just a summary of what changed. But
Yeah.
then you'd have to reference each change. On page 4-6, we said this, and on page 1, we did this. Like, is that?
Yep. And I don't think there are all that many of them.
Okay.
We haven't seen your comments though, so maybe I'm wrong.
My comments are your numbers don't match in section 6, and my other comment, which I didn't mention, which I will now, is asking them to bookmark the PDF, which I presume they will do, but just in case they weren't planning on it, they should bookmark it so that you can easily just click and jump to sections or tables or figures that are cited rather than having to scroll through.
Yeah, good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, let me take that back. I will not limit myself to 2 comments. Who knows what's going to happen between now and next Wednesday when these are due. No, I'll try to keep it small.
Yeah, I'm just a little concerned that they really probably have no budget left.
We have no budget left.
They're probably not going to want to do a whole lot.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? Going once, going twice?
Motion. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Brian Clemens moved to adjourn. Who seconded it?
I did, Steve.
All right. Motion made and seconded. A roll call vote. Steve.
Aye.
Brian Lynch.
Aye.
Brian Clemens.
Aye.
Anna Connolly.
Aye.
And Cindy Markowitz.
Aye.
And Les is happy to say aye and wrap it up for the night.